What is going on, you guys? So today we're driving a 2000 BMW 328i. This is a 3 Series, the E46 generation, and I want to talk about some key points of this car that I like and things that I don't like. So with that, let's jump right into it. So the first thing I like about this car is that it's a very fun car to drive. And I may sound biased when I say that, but it really is true. You go around turns, you can, drive in a spirited manner, and the car hangs around turns, it feels planted. When you combine that with the power that the engine makes, it's such a smooth and refined power delivery that it's just a soothing driving experience, and it really makes you want to drive in a spirited manner. At the same time, you can change the suspension for something like an H&R Cup kit with lowering springs and some stiffer shocks, and it makes the car that much more thrilling to drive around turns, which brings me into my next point. This car is very easy to mod, and I like the fact that there's a lot of modifications you can get out there. There's a big aftermarket. There's a lot you can do with the car as far as power gains, suspension, tires, wheels, even stuff like sound upgrades or navigation for the interior. You name it, the list is endless, and it allows people to customize their car to their taste, but also to stand out from the crowd. So the next thing I like about this car is the fact that there were a lot of options that you could have gotten it with. We had things like xenon headlights, Harman Kardon audio system, navigation, ski pass, part of the winter package. You had split fold-down rear seats. And yeah, while that was nice for people who bought the car when it was brand new, what's cool is the fact that these cars can be purchased used at a pretty decent price, like $5 or $6 grand, but more so, a lot of these parts can be found readily available, and you can pretty much purchase them and retrofit them in your car. So if you want navigation, or if you wanted sport seats, for example, you can do that quite easily. The next thing I like is the fact that this car has a huge enthusiast community. And that's very important because there's a wealth of knowledge online as far as DIYs, how to repair stuff, people asking questions about anything under the sun, people answering questions. And that's really cool because it shows that there's a lot of people driving these cars, a lot of people care about these cars, and they want to help one another out. There's a lot of videos online on YouTube of DIYs and so on. And on top of that, you have the BMW Car Club of America, which is actually the largest motoring club in the world. So that's cool because you have a bunch of enthusiasts getting together who share a passion for the same brand, and they establish lifelong friendships because of that. They go to race events, they go and hang out and do other stuff related to cars, so it's a nice foundation. Another thing that I want to mention that I like about this car is that even to this day, in 2017, it still keeps pace with a lot of modern cars. You have Toyota Corollas, Honda Civics, Ford Fusions, even some of the more base Audis or 3 Series or what have you. This car can still, for the most part, keep pace with a lot of modern cars which you would think are faster, or they might even be slightly faster, but I do like that because you can pick up a pretty nice used car for $5 or $6 grand and it's still somewhat relevant. The last thing I like about this car is that it's really well made, and the reason why I say that is because back in late 99 when this car was brand new, for 33 grand, it's pretty much worth every penny. BMW used high-quality materials in this car so it can last a very long time. The dashboard, for example, is made out of a soft rubber, so it doesn't crack over time, but at the same time, it adds a nice touch, so when you bump into it, it's not that hard to the feel. What I also like is the fact that, the glove box, for example, is also dampened, so you open the glove box to get something and it doesn't just slam right open, or the fact that you even get a flashlight in there. What I also like is the fact that the window switches are fully automatic, and, the list just goes on, but that's just a testament to BMW's attention to detail, and that while some people may refer to it as over-engineering, I do think that it's advantageous to the car because it shows that this is a quality car, and that it was thought with the driver in mind. This car is like a Swiss Army knife. It's really thought out, a lot of attention to detail, and it's made out of high-quality materials, so what's not to like? So now I want to move on to some things that I don't really like about this car. Number one being that I wish it had slightly more power. Now, in the 90s when this car was developed, around 200 horsepower was just enough for this car, and With the introduction of the 330i in 2001, we saw a power bump from 193 horsepower to about 225. Now, I haven't driven the 330i, but I mean, I would imagine that 225, or if you got the ZHP performance package, you get 235. I would imagine that that would seem plentiful, but I guess it's a sign of the times, and that as time goes on, we're getting cars that are a lot more powerful, and 225 horsepower just isn't that much anymore. The next thing I don't really like about this car is that it's a bit of a maintenance queen, and the reason I say that is because in my ownership experience, I've had to do a lot of maintenance, preventative, repair work, for stuff that it was normal for it to go bad, but there were a lot of things which seemed like they were just odd for going out, like window regulators, windshield washer fluid pump. There were a couple bits here in the interior which needed replacement as well, and another thing that I don't really like about this car is the cooling system in the subframe, and the reason why I say that is because the cooling system is made up of various plastic components. With time, with age, and various heat cycles, those plastics become brittle, they go bad. And once they do, they break and it can leave you stranded if not addressed properly. So if you decide to pick one of these cars up, make sure you do that as your #1 priority. Otherwise, you might just find yourself stranded, or worse off, a car with an overheated engine. The subframe is another thing I want to address, because this is more prevalent on the early E46s, because BMW was trying to save weight when they were designing this car. So in certain areas, the sheet metal they used was a little too thin, and the torque of the transmission into the drive shaft and into the rear differential, that creates a twisting force into the rear subframe carrier. And where the rear subframe mounts to the rear floor, those mounting points, that floorboard tends to develop hairline cracks, and if not addressed, that's going to continue cracking to the point where it's just going to completely sever from the car. It sounds a lot more intimidating, but just remember that if you're looking for one of these cars, ask if the subframe has been addressed. If not, take it to a private shop. They can do it for around $1,000, $1,500 roughly. So the last thing I don't really like about this car is the throttle linkage, and the reason I say that is because when you're in first or second gear, you know, if you're driving slowly through the city or inching through traffic, depending on how much throttle you apply, you can feel the car just suddenly jolting because of the poor throttle connection. And this can get rather annoying if you do a lot of urban driving, but more importantly, this sudden jolt is one of the biggest leading problems to the rear subframe cracking. So these two problems go hand in hand, and it's quite an annoyance, but for the most part, you can live with it if you just carefully watch how much throttle you're applying. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video on some key points of the E46 3 Series that I like, some things that I don't like. Please comment, rate, and subscribe. Thank you very much, and take care.